Just before going to stay in the Wem area of Shropshire in August 2006, I came across the fascinating research of Graham Phillips over 10 years previously concerning an object which had been believed by its owners to be the Holy Grail, located in the very same area. Apparently Thomas Wright, a Shropshire historian in the 19th century, had claimed to have possessed the Grail, handed down to him from his ancestors, the Peveril family, whose original ancestor, possibly a son of William the Conqueror, was given Whittington Castle after the conquest, having fought at the Battle of Hastings. The Peverils, who had a legendary connection with Sir Perceval of the Arthurian romances, became the Fitzwarreens through a female descent. This is the URL of Graham Phillips' website about this. Wright said he hid the Grail in the 1850s and left a trail of cryptic clues from the shepherd's songs, the Psalms of David, leading to a stained glass window of the four evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, in Hodnet Parish Church, which Wright had paid to be installed there. He also had 4 statues of the Gospel writers' symbols, man, lion, bull and eagle, put in a cave in Grotto Hill in nearby Hawkstone Park. The figure of John in the window was the only one carrying a chalice, and was surmounted by an eagle, so Graham Phillips reasoned that this might mean the object was hidden in the eagle statue at Hawkstone. Only 2 of them are there now, the eagle and the lion, and the eagle is damaged from when it was attempted to be removed after local businessman Walter Langham bought it in 1920 for his garden. He found the statues too difficult to move, but apparently found a small green stone cup in the eagle pedestal, which had been kept by his descendants, and Graham Phillips located it. The British Museum identified it as a Roman-style ointment or spice jar of the 1st century AD, made of green alabaster. This suggested the possibility that it was not the cup of the Last Supper, but rather another relic from that time, the ointment jar of Mary Magdalene. The figure supposedly of John in the window also had feminine features and was dressed in the colours in which Mary Magdalene is often depicted, red and green. A book about the Peveril family by a descendant, Fulk Fitzwarrene, suggests that they may or have also been a second object, saying, "So telleth the Grail, the book of the holy vessel." A medieval Grail story also refers to a sacred book, which King Arthur came to possess, calling it the Book of the Holy Grail, and saying it was written by Jesus himself. The John figure in the window was holding not only the cup, but a cylindrical object, which could hold a scroll pointing downwards. There are 2 pillars under the figure, and Graham Phillips surmised that these could be the 2 Roman pillars that Thomas Wright caused to be put at the gate of Shropshire Church, in the site of the Roman town there. However, geophysical surveys found that nothing was hidden in or around them. I was interested to find that St Luke's Church, Hodnet, the site of the enigmatic John Mary window, is the centre of a number of leys, radiating out to other places, which figure in the Grail story. Whittington Castle, the home of the Peveril Fitzwarrene family, who claimed to possess the Holy Grail. Wroxeter, the Roman city site where Thomas Wright erected the Roman pillars as the church gateposts, and Hawkstone Park, where the 1st century green alabaster cup, identified as Mary Magdalene's ointment jar, was found. Alfred Watkins in the Old Straight Track mentions Hod names as being significant on leys, linked with Dodd. Hod Hill probably recalls that box carried on the shoulder with the aid of a rod, which is still used by the bricklayers' hodmen, and its connection with the skilled mound builder has strange verification in the old word for a snail, Hoddyman Dodd or Hoddy Doddy. The sight of a snail out for a walk one warm, moist morning solved the problem. He carries on his head the Dodman's implements, the 2 sighting staves. Hodnet Church is 14th century, but there are records of a church here from 1086. It has a large octagonal tower, unusual for Shropshire, and has an adjacent Mott and Bailey site. Each of the 4 Gospel writers in the east window is also standing on an octagonal platform. In addition to this window, where the John figure resembles depictions of Mary Magdalene in other pictures, there is another which shows events in Mary's life. Hawkstone Park, 3 miles away, was originally owned by the Hawkstones, but from the 16th century belonged to the Hill family, starting with Sir Rowland Hill, the first Protestant Lord Mayor of London, and continuing through the 18th century, when the striking landscape, including the medieval red castle high on its crag, was made into an ornamental park, and the 19th with General Lord Hill, who was second in command to the Duke of Wellington. Later the estate was split due to bankruptcy, and eventually the park was restored in the 1990s. When following one of the leys from Hodnet Church through Hawkstone Park, I found that it runs through a tall monolith, evidently erected in recent times. I had suspected subconscious sighting, but when I later inquired, I was told that it was put there because it was on a ley line to Chester. The map revealed that it is indeed. From the stone it runs northwards through the Red Castle and then on to a mile of Roman-based coincident road at Malpas, culminating in the Kidnall Hall clump. It continues through Hob Hill, a multi-junction at Lower Carden, a moat at Lee Hall, a mound at Eccleston and Chester Castle. The lay I was following comes westwards from a crossroads at Heathcote, through Hodnet Church to the Hawkstone Stone. I diverted at this point to follow the cliffside walk round the park to Grotto Hill, where the lion and eagle statues are still there in the cave, along with an electronic King Arthur, who gives visitors a commentary. Shortly after passing through the stone, the line reaches a house called Paradise Lodge, which seems strangely to have elements of the Shropshire Grail story. A very ornate house, it has intricate eaves and a porch with a church-like pointed front door and 2 brick-built columns, each with a statue of a lion in front of it. The lay comes from here to a small church which is marked on the 1-inch OS map, but not on the later 1 to 50,000 map. I found just what appeared to be a concrete plinth. This subconsciously sighted church was no more. The line continued through the church at Westbury under Redcastle, then to Wem Church and Cockshut Church, a bridge over the River Perry and Rednall Mill, Brinny Plentin Clump, and a church at Oswestry. Another lay from Hodnet, through Hawkstone Park, goes through the Red Castle. After running through the church and the castle, it runs south through Salton Hall, where we stayed for the week. This is a Tudor house owned by the descendants of a branch of the Hill family. It then passes through Foremoats and Lineal Wood Clump and Colmere, a lay name, a stone southwest of Ellesmere, a multi-junction at Maesy Graig, and a coincident road and multi-junction at Weston Ryn. There is a lay from Hodnet to Whittington, whose castle is said to be the model of an Arthurian Grail castle, and where the Holy Grail, now thought to be the Magdalene chalice ointment jar, was claimed to be kept. This lay runs through Hodnet Church and the other hill at Hawkstone, Elysian Hill. Then it passes through the Mount, a Bailey Mound at Weston, and then through a small church at Foxley, which could mean Old Lay, north of Wem, a staggered crossroads and bridge over the River Roden, Spenford Bridge, the name suggests it was once a ford, Hordley Church and Whittington Church, skirting the Iron Age hill fort which surrounds the castle. Finally, there is a lay from Hodnet to Wroxeter, the important Roman city site of Verconium, where Thomas Wright had the Roman columns set up as the church gateposts. The site is somewhat like Silchester, except that there are more Roman remains to be seen, particularly the bathhouse. The line comes southwards through a crossroads tracks and then Lostford Coppice, both near Market Drayton. It then passes through Hodnet Church and the Mott and Bailey at Hodnet, Castle Hill, to crossroads tracks at Green Lane, significant name, and a cross tracks and short coincident stretch at Muckleton, Who Coppice, a large clump, and then the coincident stretch of road at Wroxeter beside the Bath ruins, Roman originally. Finally it comes to Wroxeter Church, now redundant. There is a stone like a small markstone at the east end of it. Then the line goes through a Roman fort to the south and Wormwood Coppice.